Okay.
Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's in everyone's bellies.
Roll call, Jill. Is Jill here?
So Jill is here, but she might not be mic'd. She's taking minutes in the, oh, here she is.
Oh.
Sorry, Jill.
Oh,
She's coming on, I think.
yeah.
Here, why don't you use mine? Here.
6 feet away.
Hi, Frank Carini,
Here.
Cheryl Cerniglia,
Here.
Amy Millette,
Here.
Leah Schreiber Johnson,
Here.
Mark Verhalen,
Here.
Darren Grabowski,
Here.
Jane Eichhoff,
Here.
Sophia Azim,
Here.
Owen Pajemski.
Here.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for attending our school board meeting on April 6th here at 6 o'clock. We're going to go into our agenda. Number 4 is consent agenda, A through D. If there's any objections or any questions on it, please do so. I do have one for Andy. On March 31st, there's obviously a payment to Novartis, which is our prescription drug claims, of $130,290. Is that through the through our care center, obviously, or?
Nope.
Okay.
That is our prescription drug cost. So
Okay.
we were under Optum before, now it's Navitus.
Got it. Just wanted to make sure. I didn't know if that was for the center or not. So for stocking purposes, just curious. So anybody else have any questions or objections? Okay.
Can't hear you.
Amy, did you want?
Andy's going to come help.
Yep, I got it now.
Okay,
Thanks.
here we go.
All right. I just had a question about the project manager position. That was new to me. I don't recall hearing about that. So if maybe somebody could just give us a quick rundown on that position.
You got it. So Andy's going to get settled and he'll answer that for you.
Yep. So the project manager is a new position for us. It's essentially going to be the head of our maintenance department. We're looking to bring on some licensed tradespeople. And so you can see the breakdown in the personnel agenda for the board of particular costs. This would include, actually, we had a vendor call us today about chiller startups for our air conditioning over the summer. We do not need that vendor for that particular cost. So that's a $12,000 savings right off the bat. So this individual is going to come in. He's going to be able to help raise the level of all of our maintenance people, but certainly improve all of the new mechanics that have been put in and be able to get it online and up and running as efficiently as possible.
Okay, thank you.
So that's a good question. I would just draw your attention to the breakdown and proposed savings. Andy worked hard with the department to figure out how to make sure this was not only a revenue neutral sort of situation, but also something that would save the district substantial funds over time. So it kind of thoughtful, creative problem solving, in my opinion.
Have we ever had a project manager before? I mean, I don't recall one, but I'm just curious if we've never ever had one before, as far as you're aware.
We have not. We currently have an open maintenance position, so this individual will fill that open maintenance spot. But because we're providing some additional duties to that individual, we elevated the position to a manager position to give them the subsequent pay rate that would come with someone of their capabilities.
Would there have been anybody within the organization already that could have taken this role as like a promotion?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so move. So public input, recess form a portion of the meeting to entertain comments or questions, answer questions.
To public comment, like it's very important that there's an opportunity for folks to engage in these meetings. So what we've done is at the same physical site, we have an entrance to the building where you can come in without having any physical contact with any person. There's sanitizing products set up anyway. When you walk in, there's a big empty open room with chairs and a large monitor. So if you wanted to come and speak, the IT manager's in there. We do like a remote recording of the public comment if someone wanted to comment, and we're just going to keep that running for the time being so that we can be as open as we can, despite the fact that we have to do these remote situations here.
Would we allow constituents to email a concern?
If a constituent had a question or comment for the record that they wanted to share, we encourage people to email not only myself, but the full board, and people have done that historically as well. So if you weren't comfortable coming in, the email process works great for all of us too. So we're just trying to do the best we can under challenging circumstances here to make sure people can weigh in on the issues the board wrestles with. So. And with that said, I don't believe we have anybody in the adjacent room at the time present, so.
Hey, Dan, for any future meetings, could we maybe attach that public speaking type form so that when it gets sent out on social media or, at other places, that if somebody wanted to fill it out, at least they'd have some sort of like a kind of somewhat official document to be able to fill out?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Then people would have a template to work with, and they wouldn't kind of be just doing the best they could to share. We could probably turn our board guidance doc that we use here, that we share when people come in. We could probably turn it into a PDF and put it somewhere very accessible. So I'll make a note, and we'll get that going.
Thank you.
Good idea.
All right, convene formal portion of the meeting for board discussion or action. Number 6 on the agenda, new business, public hearing and waiver of DPI administrative rules, Wisconsin statute 118.38.
So this is being brought forth under Wisconsin statute 118.38. It's very important to mention that. That particular statute in the state statute covers all waivers that a school district may apply for. It is really the administrative rules of how to apply for the waiver, so we're adhering to that. As you know, there are several waivers that the school district could apply for in any particular year. The one most prevalent to us is waiver of number of hours of instruction for the given year, because we are not formally meeting on campus, and DPI does not have guidance as to how virtual hours are counted. So what we are requesting from the board tonight is we'll call it a blanket waiver of any administrative rules that may come up over the course of our closure due to the epidemic that is or the pandemic that is currently happening. The one that we know we will apply for, should the board approve tonight, is the waiver of hours. We'll apply for that immediately. But there may be requirements that the board has to apply for a waiver of testing, even though the governor has applied it, that may be statutorily required for testing of students. So we're requesting that administration be given the ability to make those decisions, given some board guidance to apply for anything that may relate to the pandemic and work that we're doing that is statutorily required.
Do we have a motion?
Grabowski, second.
Was that Cheryl? I'm sorry.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Cheryl, your mic is not on.
Sorry. I had one person ask me if teachers needed to be certified in order to do virtual schooling, or does their certification as an educator qualify them to do that? I said I would ask.
Oh, yes. As a certified teacher, they can provide virtual education like all over the state is doing right now. So as far as I know, all of our teachers who who are on our staff, who work with us every day, they can continue to do the work they've always done for us at a distance. And the state of Wisconsin, like the waiver that Mr. Cromie just introduced, they've advised us to put this forward so that we can get this checked so that we can move forward with virtual education and keep serving our students in the district. So, and our teachers are going to carry that out, and they have been. They've been working their tails off these last couple of weeks. I think they're going to do a great job.
All right, thank you.
Yep. I just want to add one more particular piece. While the governor has made it very clear that waiver of hours is something that they're fully aware of, the state statute requirement of a board meeting and subsequent public hearing that we're doing right now is still a requirement in that particular piece, although the governor will expeditiously approve all waivers related to hours of instruction related to the pandemic closures.
Okay. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, that motion is approved. Number B, middle school amplified science adoption.
John, I'm going to stop presenting and I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay, let me get in here. Can you see the screen with the situation report?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So last week, there were some questions regarding Amplify Science. So I'm going to propose, or we propose, moving Amplify Science to another date. At this point in time, we appreciated the questions from last week with only 1 week in between. I want to be sure that we're able to accurately tend to the questions that you had. You asked some very good questions. Several teachers also wanted to share some of their experiences using Amplify with the school board, but as a result of social distancing and last week being the first virtual school board meeting, we told them that we needed some time to work through any kinks or any issues that there might have been with the virtual meeting. So they would still like to present some information to you regarding their experiences and their students' experiences with Amplify Science. In saying that, if you agree to adopt that at a later date, I would love for you to email me any questions you might have by Thursday, April 9th, so I can answer your questions and clarify any concerns that you may have.
So John, if I understand what you're saying here, you're asking the board to table this for a period of time for further review, study, questions, and an opportunity for some more teachers to weigh in and be heard and have some questions asked and answered. Is that correct?
That is correct. We just want to do our due diligence so that the board is informed. Teachers have that opportunity to present their experiences along with the learners' experiences. So yes, that is correct.
So at this point, we'd call for either a motion to approve this or a motion to table.
Cerniglia moves to table.
Is there a second?
Trevor Johnson will second.
Any discussion?
The only thing I would request is that you make sure that all teachers that were involved in the science department be able to give input and feedback on this. Of course, obviously in both middle schools, but even if there's teachers that would like to weigh in on this at the high school level, it would be nice that they would be able to be given that opportunity to give some feedback as well.
And I would agree with Cheryl on this. I would like to have not only the 8 teachers, but all the additional science teachers be included on this. So
They will certainly be invited, to give their input and feedback. Absolutely.
Thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Jane. Just for, what it's worth, I know I had brought up, I had heard from some of the teachers. I think a number of us have heard from a number of parents this week. I know I saw a lot of the emails I got, the entire board was CC'd on. Just out of curiosity, I kind of wanted to reach beyond our district as well. I reached out to actually my middle school science teacher, who is still connected nationwide with a group of middle school science teachers. And he just threw the question out, who uses Amplify? What's been your experiences? and 17 different teachers responded. I have all of their kind of pros and cons that they responded with, whether or not anyone is interested in hearing those. I also asked if people weren't using Amplify, were there other programs that they used? And I think there were maybe 3 or 4 that people threw out as well. Again, I have that information if anyone else is interested in reviewing it.
Jane, if you could share that with me, I would greatly appreciate that.
Sure. I kind of just put it in a Word document. They're each broken out paragraph wise by a different person, and I will send that to you, John.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I'll just add, there wasn't a single positive email that any of us, I think, received in the last week about this issue. So I think you're going to have to bring a very strong argument if you want the board to approve this, because it's not supported by families. It's not supported by several of the teachers. And from what I'm hearing from students, they don't like it either. So,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I would really appreciate some professional feedback on is better understanding the whole DPI alignment piece of this. I know that that's a strong reason why this has been the selected test run. What is the word I'm looking for?
Pilot.
Thank you. The selected pilot program. But part of what I'm wondering about is at the state education conference that Jane and Cheryl and I attended, along with Dan, really focused on the great importance of active learning and real life problem solving and getting in and doing things in order to stay engaged. And I feel like what I'm hearing about this science program is sort of the opposite. And so I'm trying to understand if our state education conference is telling us that real life in the classroom problem solving is the way to teach. And then the DPI is sending us things to align with that require lots of reading and writing and not as much doing as we used to do. Then where is the disconnect? And maybe it's not necessarily, maybe this is something we need to think more about at the state level and not just at a district level. Like, why is it that we're having such a hard time with this? Other programs must have been wrestling with the same issues. And what kind of resolutions did they come up with?
Leah, the other thing I was going to mention is, I know we had heard last week that science as a whole is kind of moving more to a research-based, less hands-on. Again, it's one opinion, but I think you were all CC'd. One of the emails we got from a parent is a biology professor at one of the UW schools who said, this is not how science is done. The majority of science happens in a physical lab, and nearly all of the lab sciences at my school are done with mostly hands-on activities. Again, one person, but I appreciated that, one of the parents, it wasn't just this is my thoughts and this is what my kid thinks, but I work in this field at one of the UW schools, and this isn't what we see.
And one of my big concerns with this too is the timing. We're just going through a lot in our, community, our state, our world. And I'm just concerned that if we try to bring this on too soon, it's already going to be a challenge if we aren't able to come back to school before the end of this semester. That means when we come back in the fall, it's going to, I'm hoping we don't have to catch kids up. That would be awesome. But I'm concerned that there might be some catch up time, maybe either scholastically or emotionally. And so I just worry both not only for students, but for staff as well, because this is an extremely challenging time we're all facing. And so I'm a little concerned about the timing of this right now with this one in particular. The social studies ones didn't seem to be a big issue. I don't have a problem starting that one, but and this K2 program, but the phonics, that would seem to be okay. But this one just seems to have concerns for me for starting it this early. But again, I'll wait and hear when we hear more.
Yeah, I would agree with everybody on this comment. It really eliminates the hand-on and learning experiments and activities. I'm involved just like some other parents here with my kids who are taking. One of them has taken this class. or has experience through it and engaged, but eliminates the engagement part where they're learning through trial and error. And so just to be on a computer and read and it's totally, and to me, science is getting your hands into it, and you are going to make mistakes, but that's a learning process. So I appreciate tabling this, and like Amy, I mean, I could see this as a resource. So something's got to be changed on this. So
all of your feedback I've been writing down, and I think there's a lot of misconception on what the program provides for students as far as the experiments and hands-on activities, but I will put together some information so that you can make an informed decision based on what the program does provide and how the program is set up for the April 27th meeting.
all right, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We still need to vote.
We need to vote, yeah.
Yeah, so Cheryl made a vote to table it.
And
Someone
Leah
seconded.
seconded.
Leah seconded. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passed. It is tabled.
Okay, the
All
next,
right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
the next one is CKLA K2 adoption. Last week I presented how it's focused on foundational skills and phonics component, a lot of grammar and so forth. So this would be adopted for kindergarten through second grade.
Is there a motion?
Cerniglia moves, oops, sorry. Cerniglia moves to approve.
Malat second.
Any discussion?
I guess I feel like I just need to ask, and I would assume that maybe we would have gotten feedback as well, but how many K2 teachers were involved at all with any of the pilots, and what's been their feedback?
I'm highlighting the document.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, there were 14 teachers across different buildings that piloted. In addition to the 14 teachers, we also had a K2 literacy group that met out in addition to the pilot as well. After the pilot, after we got our information, pros, cons, worked through those. We also had teachers that wanted to come and present on behalf of CKLA, but same situation with the social distancing and virtual meeting. We told them that, thank you, but, probably more challenging to get them to present virtually than in person.
Okay.
And there were principals, learning coaches, and teachers all involved, and building administrators involved in the CK literacy group.
Okay.
And we're gonna have this money in the budget.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
It's been budgeted for. It's been planned for.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion passed for K2 program. All right, high school world cultures resource.
Yes, this is a new course that'll be starting next fall. So with the new pathway, all ninth graders taking world cultures. So the resource was needed, and we looked at a couple different resources for world cultures. This one's really nice because it has a C3 model, the college to career, the civic life component, which is college and career ready, and then also the inquiry design model, which is called the IDM, researching, looking at cultures, looking at the landscapes of the land, the economic factors, the political, the social, the languages. So this resource is also interactive as well, and has a lot of really nice online pieces for EL students that you can move the Lexile reading levels up and down. So for example, if a student comes in as a ninth grader is reading, let's say at the 7th grade level, you're able to lower the Lexile level on the reading passage without anybody else in the classroom knowing. And that goes for any student, not just EL or special ed, but any struggling reader. So that's a really nice component. And there's some really nice interactive tools that they can go and use. For example, there's libraries and museums, actually live museums that they can go to look at different artifacts from the different time periods and different cultures.
Okay,
Motion.
we have a motion.
Cerniglia moves to approve.
Grabowski seconds.
Any discussion?
I, along the lines of everything else we've talked about tonight, were there staff members, department people involved in the decision-making?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. The two teachers that I met with that will be definitely teaching the world cultures, we met several times, brought them a few different resources, and this is the one that we agreed would be the best for the teachers and best for students.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For any of these, as far as contracts, like this one says a 6-year contract, is that
Yes.
just their standard, or can we negotiate?
No, they're pretty standard. On some of them, I was able to extend it 1 year longer. And the reason why is we were able to save additional dollars by extending it 1 more year. In this particular case, the 6-year contract was the better route to go
Okay,
financially.
sure.
Anybody other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion approved on the high school world culture resource.
And then there's
Next
just
is-
one more.
Go ahead.
This one is, that we, with the social studies pathway, we condense U.S. History 1 and 2 into one course. It'll be taught more thematically, bigger units along the way. There will be 12 units in total. We will be meeting over the summer to help design and condense U.S. History 1 and 2. This resource, we looked at 4 different resources, and this particular resource, just like the world culture, is very interactive, very intuitive for students. There are test generators for the teachers. Lexile levels can be adjusted up or down. There is live learning, so if they wanted to view artifacts from the Civil War, they can look at different primary sources through many, many documents. This is National Geographic. I don't know if some of you have cable or DirecTV. They have a lot of great National Geographic resources on TV as well, but this is a separate entity of that piece. So when you hear the term or word National Geographic, I just want to make sure that they have a very vast, comprehensive educational component to them. And this resource is well aligned to the Wisconsin standards through the inquiry model and the C3 framework as well.
We have a motion.
Cerniglia moves to approve.
Eichhoff seconds.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That has moved forward and approved. All right, next is approval of fee schedules on lunch and student fees. Thanks, John.
Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you, John. I'm just switching over to be able to present here. Can everybody see the fee report? Okay, we brought this last week. As a reminder, we are not proposing any new school fee adjustments for the 2020-2021 school year. Again, ran that through CPI based on actual increases, and we are right where we should be. We are requesting approval of an increase in food service fees. That is related to our meal purchases. So in kindergarten through 5th grade, keeping that price the same. 6 through 12 standard meal, keeping that price the same. 6 through 12 premium meal moving up 5 cents, and 6 through 12 chef meal moving up 10 cents. The second piece of this is youth program fees, and this relates directly to before and after school at both West and East Middle School. And you can see the registration fee of $25, AM fee of $75, afternoon fee of $150, or a combined $200 if you're signing up for both. And then an emergency one-day fee of $20 should you need to have some after-school supervision of your middle school age child.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Cerniglia moves to approve.
Thanks, Cheryl. Amy, second. Any discussion?
Andy, do you know for the $20 a day, like the emergency, is that only for people who routinely have their kids there? And if it's on a day that they wouldn't normally, they can say, I'd like to add them? Or would that be for someone who's not even part of the program, but just calls one day and says, could my kid stay?
Yep, that's the part. So they're typically not coming in the morning or the afternoon. but they, for some reason, request Wednesday, we need to have some supervision. Could we have them stay after school? So it's used for that one-off time where supervision is needed, not the everyday fee.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. That motion has been approved and move forward. Next on the agenda is number 7, informational items, 2020 and 21 preliminary budget presentation.
So this is coming forward to you second time. We took a very broad look at it in January, and we've had a couple of pieces take place since then. We've had a couple of administrative hires, a couple of teacher hires that have filled some open positions through either retirements or resignations. So that's an important piece. We are still trending healthcare at about a 4% increase, although healthcare is trending very well this particular year. I do want to caution us, though. You've seen some of the reports of people who contract COVID-19. If you're in the hospital, they're in for like 15 days in the ICU. A typical ICU day rate is somewhere around $20,000 to $25,000. So a couple of individuals that go into that is going to drastically change our healthcare spend. And just based on the size of our population, it would seem like we are going to get one or two of those just given the rates that are happening. So we have to be very cautious about that. But we still feel pretty comfortable at 4% at this point in time, and we'll adjust that as needed. The other piece in here that is still running is our 1% for our professional educators, which is the base compensation system. Our first and second year educators getting the $2,000 addition to their salary. Our 3-year educators moving up into that next level of salary. So that is about 1% of our total professional educator cost. At this point in time, we're looking at a surplus of $206,126. As I mentioned last week, in the fees talk, CPI, negotiated CPI for next year is 1.81%. If we were to take a look at applying that to salaries, district-wide, every employee, we need an additional $600,000 or so, because that's about an $800,000 cost roughly to do that. So we'll take a look at the budget here and a couple of things that we're looking at. So I have the budget up on the screen. Left-hand side is revenues. For the most part, revenues have stayed pretty steady, other than a couple of areas. One, interest is obviously going to take a hit. Interest rates are falling drastically. Where we were getting 1.5%, 1.7% before, now we're lucky to be getting 0.5%. And that's going to continue to dip for a period of time until the economy rebounds. So we're constantly adjusting that, and we're looking at ways to maximize our return. So Karen, our comptroller, is like, what do we have at 30 days and 60 days and 90 days, and how can we send some money out and get a higher interest rate on a CD or something like that? Anything to do some return. We've taken a look at some of our other local costs. We're going to have a little bit increase in property tax chargebacks. As I mentioned, when looking at the month end last week, we had $133,000 charge or so for property taxes. We'll be able to recoup that through our tax levy next year. Open enrollment was adjusted slightly just based off of second Friday counts, seats we have available, and that projection. General aid, integration aid, all of those are the same. Categorical aid is the same. Roughly the state aid, about $8,000, just based on what we feel a grant is going to be doing. And then the remainder of our revenues are pretty much the same. So if we take a look at the bottom of just the revenue page, you can see we're off by about $60,000 or so from where we were, but we'll continue to monitor all of those. On the right-hand side is our expenses. And again, we're just looking at Fund 10. So again, this top grouping here, green, is salaries and benefits. The reason I have the green portion and the two portions that are in white, green is required to run school from September to June. They're the 8 o'clock to 3:30 or whatever happens to be school hours, depending on grade level, have to require it. We don't have to have athletics and activities. Now, I say that like that doesn't affect school days. I realize how they affect our overall extracurricular and curricular environment. But they're a little bit different, and certainly summer school falls under that same category. The next group, again, red, is our, I call them our district requirements. We have to have these. We have retirement agreements. We are not statutory, but we are contractually obligated to. Transportation of students is required by the state. Our health and wellness center, we are under contract for that. Utilities, we have to operate the building. Insurances, if we do not have property and liability insurance, we're putting ourselves at risk. And we know that we're going to need substitute teachers because we have teachers who are out doing professional development, happen to be sick, have a personal day. All of those are roughly the same. Utilities actually are trending really well right now. Natural gas is almost at an all-time low from that standpoint. So we're looking at some long-term contracts that can help us lock us into a natural gas price that's extremely low for a certain utilization. So Steve, our buildings and grounds director, tracks that, follows that, and works through those negotiations. And then we discuss before we lock anything in if we were to do that. We know insurances, although it's the same from January to now, are going to go up. And again, that's property and liability. After the disasters that have happened in Wisconsin from a natural disaster standpoint, property insurance has just been trying to right itself and get back up to norm. So we're going to see some changes in that. The one piece in the substitutes that's dropped slightly. Again, we have some in-house substitutes at the high school. We have about 1.5 FTE that are there every day. And so that mitigates some of the cost that we use teachers on call for, because we have some internal subs that are able to either on the fly take over for an hour here as teachers apportion out, which typically happens right at the beginning and end of the year when we are almost 100% fully staffed. But then certainly during the year, they're the first line of defense when we know teachers are going to be out of the building. We'll come back to our Fund 27 transfer. At this point, we have nothing planned for Fund 46. Again, that's our long-term capital improvement plan. It's important to note we have about $650,000 in there right now. So next summer, when the football field needs to be redone, we have about $650,000 for that particular project already there. And it's also something we look at year end if there's any dollars that we can help offset that cost. Open enrollment is about the same. Our open enrollment out is pretty steady from September through January. So that calculated out to about the same projection. Voucher program is an estimate, but again, those are direct tax dollars that go to pay the what's apportioned from state aid to voucher schools. But municipalities that don't have voucher schools, our portion gets pushed off as a tax levy towards that payment. Our building budgets are down slightly. And that's just based off of the number of students in the building. So not a reduction in per student, just students in the building. Our department budget's down $35,000. This is in direct relation to our project manager, which was approved earlier in the consent agenda. CIP, our capital improvements, we're still looking at that with about a 2% increase over last year at this point in time. Again, this is still preliminary. I know when I first got here in 2017, we had several pretty long conversations about our capital improvement budget and progressing that forward and starting to put some riders on it to provide some additional funds to it. So this is the first step into trying to get that done. It's small, but again, it's the first step. So taking some baby steps in that. Again, our West Middle School and East Middle School lighting fund balance restoration. When we approved those lighting projects, it's important to note the board also approved use of fund balance, but at the same time approved a plan to restore that fund balance. So all of that is still carried over. West Middle School will have about 3.5 years left after next year. East was a little bit longer, given a grand scale of the size of that project. That'll have about 10 years left. Additional grant expenses in the lighter green. So we try to carry lots of personnel in our Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV grants as much as we can. These are additional expenses over our grant allocation that are not allocated to people. The bottom portion is our Fund 27, same categories on the right-hand side. Green is salaries and benefits to run school on an everyday basis. District requirements, although smaller, still exist in Fund 27. We have contractual obligations to retirees. We still have to transport students who have a specific disability. And we still have substitutes in relation to our special education staff. We have some additional, I just call it other special education spending. These would be things directly related to IEPs. So things like markers and rulers aren't our typical special education spend. That's a Fund 10. But these are directly related to a need. So if we were to buy markers, say out of special education, it's probably because they're extra big to help with someone's hand control or something like that, more specific. Additional grant expenses for flow through. Again, same philosophy as above. We try to get as many individuals as we can into our grants. Those that we can't, or I should say the extra dollars from those grants fall into other specific purchases. On the left-hand side, we have very few revenues related to special education. The one of most concern is going to be object or source 611 special education aid. This is in direct relation to the governor's budget that was approved last summer, which took special education from about 24.6% reimbursement to 25.3% in the current year and up to 30% next year. So essentially 30% of all of the dollars that we spend in special education get reimbursed to us in the form of state aid. I should say 30% of our non-federally funded expenses get reimbursed to us. So that's roughly about 30% of our non-federally funded costs. So it leaves a Fund 10 transfer of about $6,046,000. That comes straight out of our general operating funds and is a direct correlation to the yellow line that's in the above portion of the document. So all the talk that we hear about, we need to fund special education more, that's really to keep dollars in general education, which is applied to everybody, and receive more funding that goes specifically to our students of disabilities. So again, we're left, if we look in the middle, at $206,126. That does not budget any raise for anybody other than the 1% for professional educators, which keeps that system moving along the way. If we were to ask the question, well, could we provide any particular raise out of this $206,000? It comes out to about 0.43%. Again, CPI is 1.81 for the 2021 year. I know as Frank mentioned, 2020 is going to be a totally different animal, especially our months of March, April, May, June, and foreseeably into the future, how far they're going to go. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But for next year is 1.81, and this 206,000 represents about 0.43% of that, so roughly a fourth of what we could potentially maximum allocation for that particular CPI raise across the board. Questions on this preliminary budget?
Could we talk about the busing situation? The transportation?
If you are talking about paying them this year, that would not relate to our 2021 budget. That was the item that was tabled last week. Is that what you're referencing?
Yes, it is what I'm referencing. I guess I understand that it doesn't relate to next year, but it does relate to how much money we might have on hand at the end of the year.
It certainly does for that. It helps push us towards how do we recover those $600,000. Our biggest avenue between now and then is ending the year at about $379,000 to the positive. The $379,000 directly references our Fund 38 debt payments for next year. Fund 38 is again non-referendum debt, so it counts against our general education cost, Fund 10. So if we are $379,000 to the plus in this fiscal year, we will prepay that debt payment, or we will essentially set it aside in Fund 38, leaving an additional $378,000 as part of our overall revenue limit levy, which would push this to $585,000. Then we'd be looking at about $215,000 to $220,000 to figure out between now and really August is our timeline to figure that out. We know that we'll still have some resignations, although this year is going to be totally up in the air. Where we're sitting right now is uncharted waters for any school district. So to say that we know between April and June we have 5 or 6 resignations and we can apply it, I can't say that now. Historical data will not apply.
Andy, is there any way that we can negotiate when we do start talking with Right Way again about having, like, because the gas prices are so low. I know a number of years back when we had really low gas prices, we had set up some type of a contract that kind of locked us in for 2 or 3 years at that price. And that was really pretty beneficial to us a few years back.
So Andy, if I could, so this particular contract with this particular vendor, like we'll come back around this at a later time when we've noticed this particular topic on this particular issue, right?
Okay.
It's a piece of the budget puzzle, right? Andy's working on it, but I'd want to make sure we had this properly noticed if we were going to discuss it at length. Fair
Okay.
enough?
Sure.
The one piece I just will reference on student transportation is this number comes straight from number of buses we run by the 2020-21 rate per bus. So that's where this is being referenced from. No relation to anything else related to busing, because we just pay a daily fee per bus and then tiered based on 2 or 3 routes on that one bus.
Did we already prepay the bus company to the end of the year?
No, that was what was tabled last week.
Okay, I was just curious. Okay.
Andy, I know we were doing some work with like polling families to see if they were going to use, if they wanted to like opt out of taking the bus at all to hopefully consolidate some routes or whatever. Did that come to any kind of fruition? Did it make any kind of a difference?
Whether it made a difference or not, I can't tell you. As part of our change in registration and certainly enrolling new families, we added the question if they need transportation or not. One of the pieces in routing the software we noticed between Infinite Campus and when those routes with Rightway were first set up, there was some disconnect between that particular question being linked to the system. So it didn't fully work as intended. We have fixed those particular questions, and we have fixed the particular issues with communication between Rightware software and Infinite Campus's software. That question is back on the table for registration and new families enrolling this particular year. So hopefully we'll be able to use it more to its ability. But ideally, right now we route everybody that's in the district that would fall into our busing zones. Ideally, this would set us down to who actually needs busing, and we would be able to right size our busing to what we actually have that needs busing. So at the elementary level, we're packed, probably not getting any impact there. Middle school is pretty packed, but at the high school, our busing is pretty sparse. So we'd probably be able to see some impact there. But again, all of our high school busing, almost all of it, probably 2 or 3 routes are not, but almost all of it is tiered routing. So we're not going to lose a substantial amount, but if we can knock a couple tiers off on a handful of buses, probably could see some 20 to 30, maybe $40,000 of saving in transportation. But I look at it as 20, 30, $40,000 is a lot of dollars we could do something different with in our district.
Yeah, when I go,
Thank you.
when I go by the schools, I see these big long buses and 2 or 3 kids on them. Some buses are full, don't get me wrong, but a lot of buses that are big, there's only 2 or 3 students on them when they're going home. I usually see it when they're going home. So maybe a smaller bus, does that impact the price at all?
Well, those buses are typically tiered. So that bus, while it's stopping at the high school and dropping, say, 2 or 3 kids off, it's circling around to go to the elementary school, and 60 kids are getting on it. So to have them go back to Rightway and try to change out a bus, and unfortunately to have Rightway have 2 buses on hand to do that, doesn't seem beneficial to them or us from a time standpoint as well.
No, I got you. I understand.
Any other questions? Thank you, Andy. Review upcoming school board meeting and tentative agendas.
Okay. So, given all the attention around election changes today, it sounds as if we're going to have our election like we were supposed to, right? And that means election of officers for us can commence on the 27th. The format for that's going to be interesting. We'll work that through when we get there. Okay. So our normal process of the paper ballots, we'll see. So let us work on that for a minute. We'll appoint some delegates to a couple of different positions, and we'll see about some teacher contracts. We'll come back around the preliminary budget again. We'll talk a little bit about capital improvements. It'll look a little different this year because of all the construction, and we work very hard to weave the capital projects into the construction schedule. So that'll be interesting for us to walk through. We'll also hear from Mr. Rohde, so it'll be fun. He'll be in his office with his air traffic controller headset, and maybe he'll have some sort of multimedia presentation for us or something on the wall with a meter stick. So we'll see. We'll come back around some more teaching and learning policy updates, and later on in the following month, again, policy work, quite a bit of it. So, and I'm working very hard to keep this agenda as manageable as we can, given our new format, but there's just a number of things that we have to look at, like business as usual. So if you have any questions on this, you can contact me at any point, or Frank as well. So
Dan, real quick, the election of officers. Now I know we're able to vote tomorrow. They opened it up. I just got a feeling the votes aren't going to be counted by April 27th because of all the mail-in ballots and absentee, whatever. So we might have changed that.
yes, well, I mean, and we're monitoring every day. Like I got 6 updates in the first 5 minutes of the governor's order, and another 16 as soon as it was changed. So we're going to watch this real close. And we have to adjust the schedule. It's just our guidelines for a schedule. I'll adjust it when we cross that Rubicon. So
All right, no major.
I just want to say, I know it's probably early, but I would love.
I don't think you're on.
There's always one. I'm just kidding, Amy. It's like an Apple computer. Just go down and get the
you can always just give me a call. So, all right, Frank, the meeting's yours.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Soniglia moves to adjourn.
Wyckoff
Is there-
seconds.
Thank you, Jane.
Sure.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a great night.